This conference will now be recorded.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So sorry for delay. So we're I stuck in some other meeting. Okay, so is it audible? Okay, thank you. Yeah, so yesterday we started to understand about the Git repositories as a source code management tool. And yeah, let me recollect of it what we discussed yesterday. Then we'll continue this today's section. We were trying to understand, so if you don't have the source code repositories in the development environment, so what are the problems that we have that's we were trying to understand the first section, like sharing problems, others, the histories, tracking. So there are some issues we were trying to understand it. But to overcome all those issues and easy way to integrate all the developers code, yes, source code management tool is mandatory in the development environment. And we have the different source code management tools which are available in the market. Old approaches which we have the client and server architecture like the CVS or the SVN, but the latest approach which we have this is the distribution architecture. That means we don't have this the dependency only on the remote repository. Even the developer system contains about the repositories, that is the local repositories, and in case the remote repository is not available, which we can use the local repository files itself to distribute to the other developers. That is the beauty which we have from that the distributed architecture. That's we are trying to understand it. And after this, like the Git, about the Git we were starting that. So the Git is the distribution architecture which was started in 2005 onwards, and this is the platform independent. That means on the Windows or the Unix or the Linux, the commands are the same. And yeah, the open source. So there are some points on the Git we were trying to understand, and then we started to understand that like how do we install the Git. How do we install the Git on the Windows is the Git bash software is available, which we can download it and we can install it. So that is already we were doing this whenever we are installing that the vagrant itself. And the second option, like Unix systems or the Linux systems, so how do we install it is, so on the base of the type of the platform which we are using, that is like CentOS or Debian based systems, we have the separate packages which are available, so we can use it those commands apt-get or the m packages to install the Git. But RPM based, like which we have this the tarball also, we can download the tarball and we can install the tarballs also. Yeah, there was a discussion on the installation. And once this installation is done on the Windows and on the Linux server, we are using this the CentOS, and where we were installing through that I am install the Git, that is a package name. Then we are verifying this which is Git and Git versions. So that was one concept. Then we started to understand that some Git commands, like how do we get the help of the Git. There is a Git help, Git help -a or Git help with guides like -g, or guide name or the command name which we can pass it. Yeah, there was some commands on the help. And once there's a help understood on any system, like the developer systems where they are going to perform the commit the code to the Git repository, we need to set up some configuration properties. Like so we are trying to understand some properties like git config, the -global, the -list. We can verify that the username and the email IDs have been set up or not. And if those are not set up that, then we can set up this by using a git config command, like a git config usernames or git config user emails. But all these properties, whatever we are setting this the global level, so are storing this in one of the configuration file, or one of the, like yeah, the configuration file that is in the user home directory, .git config file. Yeah, that's we were trying to understand it. That's point. Then once the help commands and the git config understood that, then we were understanding first how to create a local repositories. Yes, how to create a repository is go to the directory and just run it about the git init command. So if you run this the git init, so git init which is creating about the local repository files, but where we will be having the git related, the complete metadata, the local repository files is that is in the .git folder. So if you have this git metadata in the .git folder, then the directory we can refer as the local repository. That's we were doing that. So that is taking some directories and creating the local repositories with the git init command. And as well as we were doing this like remote repositories as well, as that is the bare repository we were calling about it. So bare repositories, but how to create a bare repositories or a remote repositories, that is the git init -- bare. But what is the difference? That's where how does the local repository or the bare repositories, how do I identify that? Suppose in the same system we can create the local repository, and in the same system we can create the bare repositories also. But how to create it? Which one? I mean, how do I identify that which one is the local repository, which one is the remote repositories? That's we were trying to understand it from that. I mean, verifying about it, the repo directory. So all the metadata of the Git which we have this in the file system. So then that's directory we can refer as the remote repository. And if we see this, the complete Git metadata in the .git folder, then that's we can understand this, that is the local repository. Yeah, so there are the points that's we were trying to understand yesterday. That is local repository and the remote repositories. Yeah, so just a minute. So I'm getting one call. So let me just talk to that. Yeah. Yeah, so there are the points that's we were trying to understand, and we were creating the remote repository and then as well as a local repository. And once that's done, but how do we sync it? I mean, how do we the clone it about the remote repository to the local repository? That's also we were trying to understand. So one command where we were referring about it, how do we clone the remote repository to the local repository? That means, so once remote repository has been set up, that each and every developer they need to clone that the remote repositories, but how they can clone that remote repository to the local local system is, so git clone command also we were trying to understand. So the git the clone which is supporting about it. So the syntax, if you just recollect of it, so we're trying to understand the git clone, and then the ssh connection string, that is the user account and at the rate of IP address, and on the system, so wherever it is created this remote repository, the complete path of the remote repository. Yeah, so this command which is helping that to clone that remote repository to the local repository. So that's we were trying to understand and we are observing that. Yeah, there are the points that we had it yesterday. Now let's talk it about that. In the one more that's I mean the git tool. So that's we have this is GitHub. But what about this GitHub, and what is the difference? Like yesterday we have set up the Git server, but what is the Git server and the GitHub? Yeah, Git server, if you just try to understand it, what we have done is we have taken one remote system, that is a Linux based system, and in the workspace we have just created like to verify that we have created one repo, and yes, this repo directory we are referring as remote repository. So within the organization, and if you're going to take this one remote system, like where you can install about this the git bare repositories, and that remote system you are going to give that to all the developers to commit the code or to push the code to this remote repository. So now this server, so what are the remote server which are configured, so the bare repositories to manage it, that machine or that server we can call as git server. So this is like the non-GUI based, like mostly which we use it the Unix based systems. So within in our organization, so like where if we define about it, any bare repository in the remote system, so that remote system we call it as Git server. But what about this GitHub is? So the Git server is about our own the remote repositories which are configured. But what about the GitHub is? So he is one of the vendor who is providing about that like ready-made remote repositories. That means if we just verify that the GitHub site, so in the market, some third-party providers who are providing about the ready-made remote repositories. So one of the provider, so the GitHub is one of the provider who is providing the the remote repositories. You can just create one user account and you can so create that one repository and you can use it that repository as a bare repository and you can give that URL to that all the developers so where they can push the files or the pull the files. That means we don't need to have the any remote server in our network, and some third-party providers they are providing about the ready-made remote repositories with a high security and with the distribution management, but we have the some cost so which we need to pay to them, like a GitLab, he is one of the vendor, and GitHub, he is the one of the vendor, and GitHub is the very well known in the market, and this is acquired by Microsoft. Before, GitHub was the vendor, who was providing all these services, but this GitHub is acquired by that Microsoft. And if you observe that the customers who are using about the GitHub is, yeah, so more than 2.1 million businesses and organizations using the GitHub, like SAPs or the IBM or the Google, PayPal, Bloomberg. So there are the different the clients who are using about this GitHub. So that means, you can just create one user account and you can manage it about your complete source code repository as remote repository. So in this GitHub, like he is one of the cloud provider who is providing that source code repository. Like just log in, create that one account and create the repositories and manage the repositories. Like a GitLab is another vendor. Bitbucket is that is also comes under this one of the version controlling tool. So there are the different vendors who are providing about the ready-made, the remote, the servers where you can just create the repository and you can use it that the remote repository. Yeah. So how do you create that user account? So just so that means next point what we are going to do this is we are going to talk about this GitHub. So how you can log in and how you can create that account, and after creating that how to create repository, and once remote repository is created, so then we use it this GitHub like cloning the files or push or pull operations with GitHub as well as. That means so in this diagram, so yesterday this bare repository we have taken about our own system and we have created the bare repository, and how do we clone this bare repository to the developer machine. Yesterday we were working, this is about our Git server, this is about our own server. And today we are going to talk about the some third-party provider who is providing these remote repositories, that is the GitHub or the GitLab or any vendor. So you can just create that user account and you can go to the remote, creating the repositories, and you can use it about our Git commands to pull it or push the commands. Yeah, so today there's one more option. What we're going to do this is this bare repository we create within the GitHub. This is not about our own server. So we are going to take it some third party, so the server where we create the bare repository. And once the bare repository is created within the GitHub, then we'll come back to that about our local system. So how do we clone the files from this GitHub repository to about our developers machines or the like working areas, and how to push the files or how to pull the files. Yeah, so the second option, so third party vendor also we are talking that as a bare repository. And one more advantage what do we have this is this GitHub is this is the GUI based. Like that means the yesterday, so like the bare repository to create it, we were using git init --- bare. So to create this file system, we are using the git init --- bare. But if for the GitHub, so you can use it the GUI based itself, like to create the bare repositories. Yeah, we'll observe those points. Okay, let me explain about it, how you can create that and how to create the account and how you can log into this. So here, so you can just sign up that the first time. So these are like public accounts are available, private accounts are available. I will differentiate it the public and private later. So just you can create that by defining the username, email ID and a password, and you can sign up here the first time. And once the sign up is done, then you can log into this by just giving that the whatever the email account ID which you have used. So with that username and password, you can log into the GitHub. Yes, once we log into that, but remaining on most of those options which we have, this is the first and foremost which we go for the creating a repositories. But how do you create a repository within that? The GitHub. So you can just go to the plus indication here, and we have this option like a new repositories. We can create that repositories, or we can create that organization structure that like multiple repositories within the single organization point of view. And we can import that repositories. Already we have this another repository where we can import it from another account. So there are the different options which are available. But let's go for this creating the report. That means what I am doing is I have taken the GitHub is the remote server, and on in this remote server we are just going to call that git init hyphen bear, but everything that is through GUI based. I'm not I didn't use that SH communication to log into the system, and I'm not using all these options. So directly like log in it and just create that user account. Yeah, so you can create a new repository. So that's, let me create it. So this is the sample repository for about our batch purpose, that is online something. And you can add some description for this. Yeah, so this repo for online batch, some description about the repository, and here you can differentiate it. So what are the repository you are going to create it? So is it a secured one, non-secured one? So public repository, if you create it, anyone can see this repository, and you can choose who can commit it. That means you can add the user accounts who can only commit it. Commit is nothing but upload in the files. But anyone can see this repository. That means anyone can download the files which are available in the public repository. That means the read actions, the read permissions are available for all the users as a public repository. But committing that, which you can define it, who can commit the files to this repository. Yeah, that is a public. But private if you create it, we can choose it. So who can see and commit to this repository? So we can restrict it, who can see and who can commit it. That means even that reading and as well as write, both you can manage it as a securities point of view. And private, if we select it, so one more option what do we have? This is the private is having this approximately this $7 per monthly they charge it, and you need to give us the credit card details, and you need to provide so all this the payment gateway details information. So then only the private repository you can create it, and approximately it is going to have the $7 cost per month. Yeah, but the public and private, only the security point of view are different, but the almost like whatever we can do thus like commit or push pull. So what are the next activities we are going to do? That we are going to use the public repository. Yeah, so select about that which type of the repository is public or private, but as a practice point of view, let's go for the public. But if you have the secure data, then you can create in the organization, we go for the private repositories. There is one point. And the next, yes, next we can initialize this repository with a readme file. So that means we can commit to one file as a readme file, but that is optional. So I'm not going to use it because we are going to commit about our own files. Yeah, so skip this, or if you can define this about your required. Yeah, so there are the properties to create repository. Just go for the creating repository. Yeah, so that means what we have done is we have done in on this GitHub server at this user account. So the Venkat09 docs. So this is a like account ID which I have created, and so it is created one directory, repo directory, that is with the online is the name we have given for this repository directory. Yesterday we have given repo directory in our Git server. So in our Git server, repo is the directory we have given. So now what is the repository here we have given is online. And so in this remote server with this user account, and this is the directory which is created, that is git init -bear. Now you can see that the URL. So this URL we can use it to clone the data. So as we are trying to understand it, so once this repository is created, so now this bear repository has been created, you can use it, this URL, like which you can share it to the developers where they can clone the data. Okay, let me take it about this URL. Now we go to that about our the developer machine. Yesterday, whatever we have done, like here, let me go to about our workspace, like the git exercise. Yeah, so repo from git server, Thus we were cloning from the Git server, and this is from the scratch. We have just created the local repository. Now let me create one more directory here, the repo from GitHub. Yeah, so this is a directory we have created. So now let me clone it, the GitHub repository. So how to clone it? Yeah, the git clone is the command, and just pass this URL. If it is a Git server, the user account at the rate of that was the syntax we are trying to understand. Or if it is the GitHub, GitHub is like HTTPS URL. And here if you check it one more point in the GitHub, so we can use the HTTPS URL or we can use it SSH URL as well as. So either one of that which we can use it. Both it is supporting, but Git server which we have created yesterday, that is where we were doing that SSH communications between about our developer machine to the Git server machine. But the GitHub which is supporting the two URLs, either HTTPS based or SSH based. Yes, git clone and specify the URL. So cloning into the online directory, it is just creating one online directory. And warning you up to have cloned an empty repository. Yes, obviously that is empty repository. So we don't have to send any files in this. Yeah, now, so this online directory, whenever we change it, now it is showing this is the repository. That means you can see that the .git folder. So this is a local repository which is indicating, but this local repository is mapped to that which remote repository? To this remote repository. Yeah, there is a synchronized. And yesterday we were doing this about our Git server. That local repository is mapped with that Git server. But we don't have any working files, so we didn't create it. So we go for that is next activity. We are coming back to that. Yeah, so that's about. So there is like how to create the repository on the Git server and how to clone it, or how to create this the remote repositories on the GitHub and how to clone it. So there are all activities we are trying to understand. Yeah, the next point what we have this is now the remote repositories are available. But next so once the developer is connected to the remote repository, so what is the activities? Like, so now he's having the local repository and which is mapped to the remote repository. But what is the next activity? Working copy. That means he can create a files and he can upload the files to this local repository, then to the remote repository. Yes, these are all the activities we are going to perform that. Have got all these points on the local repository and how to create that remote repository on the Git server if it is required, or how to create the remote repositories if it is a GitHub. But GitHub just we have logged in and we have just created, but we'll come back to that some settings on the base of the requirement. And this is just like we have created the repository, but we don't have any files. That's why it is showing that this is the URL which is showing. And once if you upload the files, then you will be having this in the code section. What are the files you have uploaded? All the files you can see this in the GUI based itself. Yeah, so there is next activity we are coming to that. So have got this point. And one more point. So what do we have this is, how do I know that suppose if I give the some other name, like instead of that repo from GitHub, which is indicating, okay, this repository from the GitHub, we can easily understand it. Suppose you have given some XYZ directory and you see that the online directory, but this local repository, yeah, this local repository is mapped or synchronized with which repository. So how do I know that? Suppose you went to the some leave like a 10 days and you are the developer and you are using this workstation and you have created some files and you have cloned it, but some the reason you went to on the leave, and after coming back to that you forgot the some directories which you have created for that. Now I would like to check it that, so this is my local repository, fine, but this local repository is mapped with that which remote repository. So how do we know this is, so the git config, before to set up the username and emails we were using git config hyphen global, but here so we can use it the git config hyphen list. So git config hyphen list which is indicating is this current local repository related properties. So here if you observe that some properties which we have, and still it is having some more properties. Yeah, so this is the final end. Yeah, so here if you observe that, okay, so we have so many properties. So here you can see that the username and user email, those properties also you can see that. And as well as one of the important property, if you observe that, remote URL. So this remote URL, so this local repository is mapped to the which remote URL. So this is the remote URL which is mapped. That means with this property we can understand that. So this current so this current local repository is mapped to this remote origin URL. So what is the name it has been given to this remote URL is origin. So we are going to use this property somewhere. So whenever we are pushing the files to the remote repository, we need to refer this URL. But how do we refer this URL? Each and every time you are going to type this URL to push the files to the remote repository. That means to this URL. No. So what is the name that has been given by default to this remote URL is origin. So we can refer this complete URL with this origin remote URL. So this local repository is mapped with that remote repository. Yeah, so this the local repository is mapped with the remote repository. How do we identify is git config -list. And suppose if you go back to that, so we were creating the repo from git server also. If I go to that directory and if I run the git config -list, okay, let me show that. Repo from git server, this repo directory, and if I run it about the git config -list, yeah, now this remote URL, remote origin, so is mapped to that's about my git server. So we can verify that we can verify this about our local repositories are mapped to that which remote repository. And if you go back to that about our one more directory, like suppose here in the git exercise repo from scratch, here we have just created git init, but this directory is not mapped to that any remote repository. So if you run it about, if you go to this directory and if you run this command, that means in one developer machine, if he is working for the multiple projects, he can map it or he can create a multiple work directories or the multiple local repositories with the working directories. Suppose here if I run it git config -list, yeah, we don't see there's any remote URL properties here. So we don't see the remote dot origin URL because this is the local repository which is not mapped to that any remote repository. But is it possible to map it to the remote repository about this local repository? Suppose the developer has created some files and he would like to create this this local repository as remote repository. Can he create it? Yes, he can create it. Okay, let me show this as well. Suppose now this is about our the local repository. Yeah, we don't have the any files. Okay, leave it off it. So now this repo from scratch. So what are the directory we have? This is the local repository which contains. So if you would like to create one remote repository within the GitHub, so you can just take this directory, but it has to be exactly matched about this directory name. So this directory name you can take it, and first you can create a repository in our GitHub. So go to here and a new repository. What we are trying to understand is already we have the local repository, and whatever we have the local repository, and with the same replicate with the same data, we would like to create one remote repository. But already you have the local repository. Then how to create it? How to create this local repository mapping with the remote repository? Yeah, the first create remote repository. Yeah, so there's the same directory name, use it about it, and create the repository, and take this URL, the copy this. So you can copy here the copy icon. It has been given to copy this URL, and then go back to that about our developer machine. And here we need to, this is, if you just verify this is having now the local repository only. So it is not mapped to that any remote repository. Now I would like to map to this remote repository. So what is that? The command which we have this is git remote add. That means we are adding one remote repository to this local repository. Git remote add, and what is the name that we are going to give this remote repository name as origin. This is the default names. Origin is the name, and then copy the URL which you copied from the remote repository. So git remote add, that means so to this local repository we are adding about this remote repository with the name as origin, but what is the URL that the remote repository contains is this is the directory name. If we just create it, yeah, if you run this command, now this local repository, yeah, so now this local repository is mapped to that about our remote repository. That means, so now from the working copy, if you create any files, and these files first you can commit to the local repository. From the local repository, if you are pushing to the remote repository, all the pushed files which will be moved to this location. Yeah, so that's about understanding. But how do you push the files? There is next concept, so which are coming back to that. That means the working area, how do you work it? But we are trying to understand the local and remote repositories, how to manage it. But working copy wise, we are coming back to that working area. But we are trying to understand the local repository, how to map to the remote repository, or if you have the remote repository, either Git server or the GitHub, how do you clone it to the developer machines? Yeah, that's about the repositories, the creation and mapping with that. Now let's move to this next activity. Cloning the repository from Git server, the GitHub. And within the GitHub, let me talk about this one more, the concept also. What do we have? The concept is the fork. So you were observing creating the GitHub user account and creating the repository in the GitHub. Now let's talk about one more concept from the GitHub before talking about the working copy. That is the fork options. What is the fork is? Suppose, okay, let me search for that some repositories, some sample projects like in the Google. I'm trying to do that. So searching about Git sample Java project. Yeah, so in the github.com, so in this user account, and we have some sample Java project. Okay, let me open this. This is Ant based, like that you can find it Maven based also. But anyway, so just understand about the fork concept. Now on this user account, so this user, he has created one repository, the sample Java project, and he has uploaded all these files like which are belong to that. Yeah, the pm.xml file is available. That means the Maven project also is available here, and he has given one sample project. But the same sample project, so you would like to clone to about your account. So now I mean you are reviewing about this project, and it is the helpful, I mean, so you understood, okay, this is a project I would like to use it. That then instead of using this project here, then what you can do this is the same as it is a project, you can clone it to that about your account. Now this now the sample Java project is created with this user account, but I would like to clone the same sample Java project to my user account. That means in the organization, two developers are working. One developer, he has set up this complete project and he has created everything on his user account. And you have joined to the same project, and they have created one user account to you, and you are also going to work on the same project. But first of all, you need to clone the other developer's project to the about your user account. This is the beauty of the Git. Like the SVN, these features are not available. That means one project is which is already available on other user account, you can simply clone it to that about user account also, but you need to have the permissions. Yeah, but this is a public project and you have the permissions. We don't have this any restrictions. But if it's the private, yes, first of all, the which user, that user has to be added in the contribution section. That means who are all the users can contribute about this project. Yeah, so once the project is available on another user account, simply what you can do is you can go to the fork section. The fork already, this project is forked by this 1,300 users. So now if you fork it, yeah, now this forking yeah, about this user account related the sample Java project to this my user account. Yes, that project is distributed from that user account to that my user account. So then now this is created in my user account and about this sample Java project. So if I need it, then I can continue this working on it. That means I can clone it. So the clone URL, but I will show these all these URLs how to get it. So I'll talk it later. But this is the project which we have, and you can just take it about it, and you can use it this project on behalf of about your name. Yeah. So this is the fork option. You can easily distribute other user accounts projects to about your user account or about your user account projects. You can distribute to that other user accounts as well as. Yeah, that is the fork option, one of the option. So how you can distribute the project from one user account to another user account, the fork options. Yeah, so that's about some options. The repository is cloning from one user account to another user account, or from the remote to the local, or local repository synchronizing with the remote repositories. Yeah, they're all the options which we have. Yeah, so now let's come back to that. But I mean, this project, I'm not going to use it. So let me delete it. How to delete this project? Okay, once you have created this repository, but this repository is no more required, and you got the confirmation saying that, so remove this project or remove this repository. So what other option we have is, if you go to the settings section of this repository, and you can rename it at any time about this repository names, and yeah, so you can manage it. So there are some options, and finally, so one of the section which has this is danger zone. So what are the options we have? This is the make this repository as a private, but this is the the forked one, the duplicate the repository. So if it is a public project and you can create as a private one, you can convert it public to private or private to public, or you can transfer this ownership so to the other user accounts and archive this repository. That means you can create the archive files for this. And finally, we have this one option, delete this repository. And you need to give the project name or repository name as a confirmation and confirm that. Yeah. So this is a way like you can fork it and you can delete the repositories. But online which you have created, yes, this is the one. But still that is not having that any files. So this this is not having that any files here. And here you can see that like the create a new repository on the command line. So here, so they have given the some option like git init. There are all the commands already which we discussed. The git init command and git remote add origin. That means in your local repository, if you would like to map it, yeah, the git remote add origin, but that's the same the same repository name which we need to use it. Yeah. So that's about the concept repositories. Now let's move to that. So how do we add the files, or how to commit the files, or how do we move the files to the remote repository? But to work with that, we should know the some process, how the Git is going to work it. Yeah, so what is the process we have this is? As we are trying to understand the working directory, and working directory to that next the files which are modified in the working area is required to move to that staging area, and staging area to the local repository, that is the Git folder, and from the local repository then you can push the files to the remote repository. That means once the developer has created new files for his project purpose or the functionality purpose, or we have created the files, or we have modified the files, or we have deleted the files, the first all these files from the working area to that staging area we need to add it. And after adding the staging area, then you can commit the files to the local repository. And after committing the files to the local repository, then you can push the files from the local repository to the remote repository. So this is the flow of execution, or the flow of the process which we have this adding the files or pushing the files from the developer working work area or workplace to that the remote repositories. But how do you do that? What are the commands that is supporting that? Yeah, so from working area to the staging area, how do we add the files is we have the git add command. So I'll talk about this, but just understand the flow of execution point of view. So git add, whenever you do that, So all the working area files, it is going to take it and it is going to move to that staging area. And once the file is added to the staging area is like the cache system. So within the Git database, because it doesn't accept directly committing the files to the Git database, the first you need to cache it, then you need to commit it. The cache area, which you can call this as staging areas. And once the stage did that, but how to stage it is git add, and once that is added, then we need to forward the files from the staging area to the local repository. But what are the command we have? This is git commit command. Git commit, if you run it, so what it is doing is it is going to take it all the cache files and moving to the local repository. That means the local database, it is going to insert into that. So the git commit command, and once commit is done, that means the local repository have saved it, but from the local repository you need to update to the remote repository. That means sharing to that other developers purpose. But how you can move the files from this local repository to the remote repository is we have the git push command. You are pushing to the remote repository. So whenever you are pushing the files, then we have the remote repository URL dependency. Yeah, so what is the command? We'll come back to the git push syntax. A git push, so which is helping about it, the local repository trying to synchronize with the remote repository. And suppose other developer, they have pushed the files to the remote repository, but we need to get all these files to us about our working area, or we need to update it. I mean, suppose the database team, they have updated some code, and you are working this the front end side, but their developer, I mean that database code, you need to take it to about your system. And the database team, they have mentioned that, boss, we have committed the files to the repository, you can take it and you can go ahead. But how I can take it from the remote repository, the latest files which are available from the other developers to this my local working area is what do we call this is git pull. Clone is, yes, first time. So if you don't have this the remote repository mapping with the local repository, then we are completely cloning about it, the remote repository to the local repository, cloning. So entire copy taking from the remote to local one. But pull, what it is doing is, so it is going to verify that the local repository to the remote repository, what are the changes that we have this, or what are the updates we have, that only that updates which will take it from the remote repository and it tries to merge with it to the local repository. So git clone is completely taking from the remote repository to the local repository as a cloning, but each and every time not require the cloning. Cloning, suppose if you have the 2 GB of the files, if you are doing the cloning each and every time, which is going to take it only the half an hour of the times, only just cloning purpose. So we should not run this always the clone. Already you have cloned it, but you need to get update files. So how to get the update files is git pull command. Yeah, so what are the commands we are going to work it the next process point of view, from the working area to push the files, or from the remote repository to get this update? Git add command, that is working area to the staging area. Git commit, from the staging area to this local repository. Then git push, from the local repository to the remote repository. Then git pull, from the remote repository getting that updates to the local repository. Yeah, so this is a process. So there's a points which we have here. Three main states of this artifact or file, like any developer, what are the file is creating Java files or the Ansible files, any files if you'd like to update it, the modified one. So here the artifact of the file goes through the change made by the user in the working area. And the stage, yes, we need to stage it. So like here the user or the developer adds the artifact or the file to the git index or staging area, and then commit it. So then here the artifact of the file gets safely stored in the git database. Then we need to use it git push or git pull. Yeah, so that's about the process. Now let's talk about some commands here. Okay, so we will work with the GitHub repository. So like a GitHub or Git server, the remaining all the commands are the same, but which remote repository is mapped? So to that remote repository, the files which will be pushed, but we are going to talk about it on the, this is from server. Let me change to server. We cannot see the some in the GUI base, so each and every time we need to go back and we need to see the file system on the server, but we are going to use it that the GitHub. Let me change to that repo from GitHub, and here what we have created is online. And this is about our repository. Now let me create some files. and let's try to push the files to the remote repository. Now that means the developer is starting that. Suppose I'm working on the some like Ansible. Let me create some Ansible directories. There are some dummy files I'm creating. Don't worry. They are just understanding the process of the how do we push the files or the how to pull the files. Yes, I'm creating some dummy files. Yeah, so we have created some directories and we have added some files. And this change, okay, Ansible, whatever the script which I have done, I have implemented. I need to update to the remote repository. Then what is the process? The first, let's check it that. So how do I identify that which are all the files I have modified, which are all the files are not modified? So if you'd like to know that, so we have the git status commands, which is helping about it to know the differences between the staging area and working area. Yeah, now if we just verify that on branch master, yes, we are working on the branch master branch. So master is the branch here, but how to create about our custom branches will come back later. This is the default branch. Yes, we didn't do that any commit so far, and it is identified some untracked files. Untracked files which we have this is like these are all like which are created in our working area, but Git database doesn't know any reference about this file. That means we have just created the first time. That is available in our working area. So that is available only in the working area, but that is not, or Git doesn't know about this file. So that's why it is saying this untracked files. Untracked files, what we need to do is we need to stage it. But how to stage it? Use git add under file name. Yes, use the git add and to include in what will be committed. So whatever you would like to commit it. So first add to the staging area. Yes. So what are the commanders we have? This is git add. But in these add options, we have the Ansible directory and Ansible file as well as. So what we can do this is we can just use it about the dot representation. Or if you have this any specific file you can define it. Or if you all together like a directory and as well as file, if you would like to commit to this, just use the dot option. And this is some warning, so we can skip it about it. That's not an issue. And if you verify the git status now what it is saying this, it is showing this the green representation, green color. If you see this, so these are all in staging area. So no commits yet and changes to be committed. Yes, now so it is identified some changes which are required to commit it. So just we have added, we didn't commit it. Commit, if you do that, that will be added the file to the Git database. So changes to be committed. Yes, so still, I mean, this is the file which is required to commit it, but we have just added to the staging area. Before it was showing is untracked file. Git doesn't know about any information about this file. Git database doesn't have any reference of this file. That's why it is showing untracked files. Now we have added to the staging area. Yes, it is identified the staging area, but still it is required to commit to that to the local repository. So how to commit is git commit. And one more point, what do we have this? If we just up here, git rm command with which is having that hyphen cache and file. Suppose what is this representation is git rm cached one. Now we have added the file to the staging area, but some requirement, the staging area, what are the files which are added, you need to revert back to that working area. I don't want to commit this, but by mistake I have added some file to the staging area. The staging area file which I need to come back to that, so revert back to that my working area. How I can get it back that? So the git rm hyphen cached. So that is to that unstaging about it. Yeah, so I'll come back to this command anyway. So now we need to commit this file. So how to commit the file? Yeah, the git commit. But commit your so just defining is not enough. What we need to do this is, yeah, the developer is committing the file to the repository is nothing but first to the local repository obviously, but he is committing the files to the local repository is nothing but he has to add some description of the commit. That means what he has changed. That means the history has to be managed. Suppose if I would like to go back, what are the commits I have done yesterday, whenever I was verifying about it, I would like to know that, okay, this is the commit, this change purpose. So what is that option whenever we are committing is we need to pass some description of the commit. That means the message of the commit. So -m is the argument which is helping that to add the message. Suppose if you don't add the message, then it doesn't accept it, because any commit you are doing, some proper description has to be managed. Yeah, so what we have done is the Ansible script is created. Yes, we have created some Ansible script, some description of that activity, whatever, or change whatever we have done. Yeah, git commit -m for the message, and the description of the commit you can pass it. Now it is saying that master, yes, Ansible script is created, so this is the commit message, and one file is changed, and how many insertion that we have is in this change, one line of that insertion we have. That means in this file, like ansible.yaml file, we have added one line. Yeah, one file is changed with one insertion, and it is created the mode. These are the permissions for this file. Yeah, so now if you verify the git status, so on branch masters, your branch is based on origin master, but the upstream is gone. So what it is saying this is, yeah, it is, I mean, it is not available any information in the working area, staging area. Now it is updated to the local repository. And the local repository is having that one commit, but this commit is not available in the remote repository. Remote repository, how do we refer that? What is the name that we have is origin. And what is the branch it is having? Master. In this remote repository and on this branch level, the upstream is gone. That means the local repository contains the latest commit, but this commit is not available in the remote repository. Yeah, so if you would like to revert it back, that means now git commit, what we have done is, so we have added to the local repository, but I would like to revert back this local repository to that my staging area or working area. Then what is the command we have? This is git branch unset upstream. So if you do that unset upstream, that means whatever we have those in the remote repository is going to try to map it with that local repository, but the local repository is having that one upstream. Yeah, until to this, if you push the changes, it is going to show that message. Yeah, now we need to push those files, like which you have this from the local repository to the remote repository. So how do you push it is the git push, but push is expecting remote repository URL and as well as which branch. But remote repository is referring this with which name? Origin. And what is the branch we have? This is the master branch. The default, any repository if you create it, what is the default branch that will be created is the master branch. But we'll come back. So what is the purpose of all these branches and why do we need to use the branches later? Yeah, so now if you run it about the git push origin master, now my local repository, what are the changes I'm having, that all these files it is going to try to push to the remote repository. Yes, counting some objects and the total for it is, I mean, this is the bytes which is passing about it. And yes, a new branch which is created and which is available in the local repository mapping with the remote repository. Yeah, so now if you go back to that about our GitHub and if you refresh that page, so far we didn't commit any files. That's why it is showing this page. And if you refresh this, yes, now we got there some files which are committed. So what are the commit message which you have given is commit message. Ansible script is created. And when it was committed to the local repository, 3 minutes ago it was committed. And if you verify this, yes, within the Ansible directory, Ansible YAML file, and in this YAML file, so this is a line of the code which I have added. So just some dummy data. And all these commits are happened to the switch branch. Yes, what is the default branch that is creating that? Master branch. We don't have this other branches. We'll come back. How do we can create about our own branches? But what is the need of that? So we have the big story on that. We'll come back to that. And here itself, we can create a file. So there's a GitHub which is helping about it, the GUI based. The directly in the remote repository itself, you can create a files, or you can upload the files, or you can search for the files. So some options, those are available here. And how many branches are available is only one branch. And in this branch, how many commits are happened? One commit, and no releases so far. And we didn't add that any users, contributors. That means who are all the other users they can commit to this repository. That means adding that other users. So who can commit the files to this the same repository. But where we can add it about it is, so in the settings section, so we have this like a collaborator, and you can search by this username or the full name or email address. So if you like to give us the permission to commit that so to other users, so there's you can just add it about their users email ID or the name, and you can add the collaborators like users, other users who can work on the same repository. Yeah, so that's about how we have adding the files from the working area to that remote repository. So the main commands which we are learning about is git status to verify this from the working area to that the staging area with a local repository, the complete difference it shows. And so git add command to add from the files from the working area to staging area. Then git command commit staging area files which will be committed to this local database, there's a local repository. Then the git push command, the local repository files distributing to the remote repository. Yeah, so that's about some activities or some commands which are trying to understand. Yeah, git status, git add, the git commit, git push, and other developers code how you can update it to the local repository. Let me show this one more command. So the git pull and remote repository, which remote repository is origin and which branch code that you want to update to the local repository. The git pull origin master. If you run this command, and it is verifying this is synchronizing mapping the local repository to the remote repository, and it is trying to fetch it and trying to verify that but everything is up to date. Suppose if I create one file, okay, let me create one file here. That means I'm adding this one file in the remote repository. Okay, so what is the file I'm adding is some like test.txt. This file is added. That means I'm just creating the files on the remote repository, added to check pull command. Okay, one file I'm adding about it, and how you can commit the files is, so you can add the description over here. So commit a new file. Commit you are doing is nothing but you need to add the message. So you can add some description, creating test file for full purpose. Yes, and commit directly to that which branch. The branch also you can select it. The master branch is the default, and you can commit the new file. That means git touch command we have done, creating a new file, touch command, and then git add command, and then git commit command, and as well as push to that remote repository. Now my file which is having the same remote repository. But if I go back to the developer machine, git status, yes, it is not having any difference. Your branch is up to date with the original master. It is just about our local repository is mapped with that remote repository. Everything is synchronized. But how I can get it that remote repository files to my local repository? So to get that update, now the file is available in the remote repository. So the remote repository file I need to get to this, or I need to update to my local repository. How I can do that is origin, and which branch code does you want to update to the local repository? The branch name, there's a master. Yeah, so now it is trying to get the remote repository, and the master which is trying to map it to the remote the repository and updating some commits. So this is the fast forward, so which is taking about some files. Test.txt, this is a new file which is available, and one file is changed and one insertion which is available. Now if I verify this my local direct working area, yes, now I got the test.txt. Yeah, to get the remote files to the local repository or the working area, then we need to use it git pull command, git pull, which is trying to fetch it, the remote repository files to the local repository, and it tries to merge as well as merging. Yeah, those merging, we have the separate concept, I'll come back. But by default pull, what it is doing is it is going to try to fetch the files from the remote repository to the local repository, and it tries to merge it and commits it. Yeah, so that's about pull, push, add, commit, and status. Yeah, the next activity, what do we have? This is, let's talk about some more commands like yeah, there are the commands which we understood. Yes, git rm command and -hyphen cache and file name. Suppose what is this command? Already we had at some point. Okay, let me create some file in our. This is my working area. So I'm creating files is nothing but this. This area we call as working directory. Like suppose something docker.aml file I have created. And I have added. So particular file, how do we add it is? So just to use that git add and file name. Even if I have created other files also, only this file will be added to the staging area. And now if I verify the git status, yeah, this is the file staging area. But by mistake, I have done the staging area to this file. I would like to revert it back. How I can revert it is git reset, which we can use it, and head and file name. So which file this we have is docker.aml, or we can use it git rm -hyphen cache. That means the cache file, you are going to remove it. Normally rm command is to remove the files, but from which location you are removing this is git rm from cache, or reset also we can use it. And if you verify this now, the git status, now this file is showing as untracked file. This is not identified, but here if you observe this, the changes to be committed, it was showing that. But after resetting this, it is showing as untracked file. Git doesn't know about this file because this is the new file which you have created, which you have added. A git rm command also we can use it. So git rm -hyphen cache, that means the cache file, you are removing that. Yeah, these are the also, or you can use it the git reset command. Yeah, revert back the staged file, the git reset or the git rm command. And the head is, what is the head which I have used in that point is, suppose the head. Suppose which branch we are in the head. So what is the branch that is in the head is the master. Suppose, how do we know the list of all the branches which are available is? So this is a command, so which is showing about it list of all the branches, but still we have the only one branch, the master branch, the git branch command, so which is helping to list it all the branches, but still we have only one branch, that is master. And which branch is the head branches? That means which branch you are in the currently. So asterisk to which branch it is representing, that branch is the head branch. So that is a, whenever we are resetting that, a reset from the head branch, let's git reset head and file name. That was the command meaning over there. And commit -am. So what about this point is, suppose, and now what do we do? This is we do some changes in the test file, test.txt. Let me add it one more, some content. This file is modified to test it. Yeah, developer on the existing file has done some changes. Now if you verify the git status, yeah, so here two options it is showing this. One is modified file. I mean, that means this file is already available in the git database, the local repository that contains this reference. That's why it is showing that. So this is a modified file, but this file is not available in the git database. In the local repository, it is not available. It is just created. So that's why it is showing untracked file. Sorry. So if you verify this git status now, yeah, so that's already done. And we have the one more option in the git status, that is -s also we can use it. You can see this, the better representation. So this file which is modified -s, git status -s is for s for small, and if you don't give that s, then that is the long message, the small message or the small status or the long status. The -s, if you give that only the file name and is it a status. So what is the status? This is modified, but a docker.yaml file, this is unknown by the git, and this is untracked file. Now if you add it, the git add, and suppose let me go for the test.txt. So now if you would like to add or commit to this file to the remote repositories or the local repositories, then what we need to, we need to run the two commands, git add and then git commit. But instead of doing that, these two commands, so what is the option we have? This is the git commit hyphen a. Git commit, normally what is the message which has the -m, which will give that. But what is the one more option which you can pass? It is -a and with m. A for add it and commit it. Instead of using the two commands, so git add and then git commit, so the single command which is helping staging and committing, and then you can pass it modified file something. And whenever we commit it, still if you check it, the git status, but still the docker file is not added. Why it is not added? As this file is unknown by the git database, and whenever you are doing the git commit -a m, we can apply this only for already existing files, not the new files. New file, first time it is mandated to add it and then commit it. Second time onwards, you can go for that git commit -am, that is staging and committing that. Yeah, so how to stage it and commit in single command is, that is git commit -a with m and then message. But for the file, whatever the files which you would like to commit it, the files already it should be available in the git database. Otherwise, it is not identified that. And how to delete the file? Okay, so now the test file which are created or which is available, so this test.txt is no more required. That means from the project we need to remove this file. So how do we remove? Normally git rm command we use, sorry, normally Unix level, what is the command we use? It is rm-rf command which we use it. The same option, the git rm command, git rm. And if you I mean, so the what are the files that would like to use it, the file name which you can pass it, or if it the directory rf also we can use it, the git rm -f with the forcefully to delete it. But the single files, like we can directly use it git rm with the file name. And now if you verify that the status, now this file is deleted, and you can, I mean, this is already staged also, this is already in the staging area, directly you can commit it. Test file deleted, then you can push the files, git push origin master. Now if you verify this in the GitHub, and if you refresh here, that file is no more available. And so last commit, what was the commit? Test file was deleted. So if you go back to here, and this is the file, so test.txt has been removed. Yeah, but how do we get it? All these files as backup, so it will come back. Yeah, so you can see that the differences also, diff commands are also available. So we'll see this way. We have so many activities will come back, but one by one, let's go for. Yeah, so that's about how do we remove the files, or how do we commit that with the staging options, or how do we remove the files from the staging area to the working area, that is rm or the reset commands. And how do we check the branches, the git branch command. Yeah, how do we see that what are the commits which are happened so far in the file? That means suppose we have this one like a one file which is created by the developers, and which is 100 lines, but all these 100 lines, who has done this the commits? The first line who has done, second line who has done, or some XYZ line the who has done, which person has done, and what the committee has done. That means you would like to see that the commits of the file line by line. So what are the command that we have? This is git blame is that's one more command which is helping that. Suppose if I give that, yeah, the git blame and file name. So what is the file? So the Ansible and Ansible.ml, but this is the one commit only we have. So this is actually the line description, and this was the commit version number. So I'll talk about all these version numbers later. So suppose if you are committing that some files to the repository is nothing but that commit is going to identify this one unique number. That unique number, what do we call this, is version number. Yeah, this is the version number of this commit and which user has done. So there's user account, at what time he has done. So this is the date and time stamp it. And what is the first commit which you have? This is the commit which is done here. Suppose if I let me add it some more content to this file, so then we can see that the one more commit. Yeah, so we have pushed it the files. Now if you run this once again, the git blame. Yeah, so this was the one commit, and at this was the time, and this is the line, actually the line which was added, and this is another commit, the latest commit, and this is the user, and at this time so it is committed. So like that, the complete 100 lines are the number of lines which are this in the file. So each and every line, who has done, when he has done, and what is the commit number of that. So there's complete information that we can track it. And there's a blame is the powerful other tool which is helping us to know that list of all the files. I mean, to know that list of all the commits which are happening in the file. And suppose here also you can see this. Suppose if you go to the file, let me show here. If I open this file in the GitHub here itself, you have this one option that is blame option. Here itself you can edit it or you can delete this file. This is a remote repository directly itself you are working on the remote repository itself, but recommended is from the working area. And if you click on the blame option, yeah, so this is the commit, the Ansible script is created first time, and this was happened the 22 minutes ago, and this is the first line which is added, and this is the second commit, the blame testing, and a minute ago it was happened, and this is the testing for the blame. So line by line, the complete history of the line, I mean the file, which we can track it by using the blame options, the git blame and file name. And there's one more command, and so for this today's purpose, like we have this one more command, so let me show this or explain it. Git fetch command. So git push, which is helping about it to push the files from the local repository to the remote repository. Git pull is helping about it from the remote repository to the local repository. Git clone, which is helping the remote repository copy cloning into that local repository completely. But sometimes what is the what is the scope that we have this is, like I have created one the branch. This branch is required, I mean I have created the file branch and I have updated the branch to the remote repository, but this branch is required to get it by other developers. How do we get it that only branch? Suppose whenever we do the git pull origin and branch name we are giving that, but this is the new branch which is available. That branch is not available in the other developers local machine or the local repository. They need to fetch the new branch which is created by other developers. They need to fetch it, only fetch, but that is not already available in the local repository. then what they can do this is the fetch is this one command which is helping to fetch the like branches or the tags which are created. So how do we use it is git fetch origin and the branch name. But the difference between the pull and fetch, the pull is going to perform that fetch command and as well as merging also. That means already the master branch which is available in the local repository, it is going to try to fetch the same branch from the remote repository to the local branch, and it is going to try to merge it. So what are the changes are available in the remote repository and what are the changes are available in the local repository, trying to merge it. The git pull which performs two commands internally, that is git fetch and git merge. But git fetch which is going to do this is git fetch does not perform merge operations and it just fetches. You need to just get the information, but you are not going to perform the merge operations into the local repository. Then what are the commands we can use? It is git fetch. I will show this git fetch demonstration whenever we have the concept of the branches point of view. Yeah, so that's about the git pull or the fetch commands, so which are helping that. Yeah, parallel development, this one I will give the demonstration. This is often our concept, so I will give this tomorrow. And let me talk about some more commands, like to know the history of that. So around the 10 minutes it is going to take it about this commands. Yeah, checking the repository status, already we are using about it. So git status command. But git status, which is having the two options. The git status, we can give that, git status, if you give that, that is a long message which is giving, or we can give that git status -- long also. Like, suppose if I use the git status, that's nothing but this is by default git status -- long. Both are same, there is no difference at all. But what is the one more option which you're trying to understand is git status -s. So S for short the description of the status. Yeah, so the statuses, so there are some options which are available. And the next point what we have this is the committed history. Whatever this committed history is, like we have done some commits so far. But what are the commits are happened so far in this repository? I would like to know that. Which commit, when it was happened, which user has committed, what was the message description of it? So if you'd like to go back to the history of all the commits, so how do we know this? The history of all the commits which are happened in the repository is the git log command. Let me explain the first git log, but git log itself we have the multiple options. So very powerful the utility and the command to go for this, like what are the commits are happened in the repository to check it the completely. Now if I run this git log, so what the message it is showing here, in each commit it is going to track the four attributes information. What are those four attributes if you observe that? Yes, one is each commit is having that its specific unique ID. That unique ID we call this as a version, or we have the checksum also, we'll call that checksums on the hash. These are all which are having the hash code representation. Yeah, so each commit is having this its specific version of the checksum, so which is having the hash code representation, and this is the long string. So which you have this almost, the number of characters, so we have so many. But the each commit, how do you identify that unique is first to 7 or 8 characters if you take it, like suppose the C217 GEA. If you see that, suppose in our GitHub repositories, for each commit, suppose if I go to this here, yeah, so here also you can see that this commit is having the complete information, and somewhere you can see the, suppose if you go back to that, and you can see there's some description here, latest commit which is having only 7 or 8 characters it is using. That means each unique, each commit is going to have the unique ID. That unique ID you can identify this with the first 7 or 8 characters, more enough, not require the complete the lengthy string. Suppose whenever you would like to get it about this or check it, this is some commit version. So the take the first 7 or 8 characters more enough, not require the complete the length of the string. Yeah. So that is a unique ID, the one attribute, and second attribute in this the each commit is the who has done and what is the email ID of that. So yesterday, if you try to recollect of it, we were defining this in the git config -hyphen global list about the username and email ID. Yeah, that is author information it is tracking. That means if you are committing is nothing but it is going to read that information from the git config file, and at what time it is committed, so the date and times, and what is the message he has passed about it, the message information. There are the 4 attributes which we have this for each commit. And this was the, I hope so, if you just observe that this is the latest commit which we have done, blame testing. And before this we were deleting the test file. Then we were modifying some files, then we were creating the test file. And if you go like this, yes, so this is the first commit, Ansible script is created, and this test file is created for the pull purpose in the remote repository itself. Yeah, there are like each commit. And here if you observe that this commit which we were doing on the remote repository itself, so author is the my the GitHub user account, it is tracked here, but remaining all the places it is tracked with RNS. That means these are all the commits which are done from developer machine, developer working area, but this commit we were doing directly from remote repository itself. So this commit, so you can just verify that. So there's a git log which is helping about it to know the list of all the commits which are happened so far, and each commit related, the who has done, when he has done, what he has done, and the unique ID of that, the version number. But git log is itself is handled with the different options. Like sometimes I need to have that author based, like the particular user, what are the commits he has done, or on that particular file, what are the commits are done, or what are the latest commits which are done. Suppose here we have this only maximum we have done like the 5 or 6 commits, but in the regular process in the infrastructure, if you observe that, we don't know that how many commits are going to happen in this in the repositories per day on the basis of the number of developers and the functionalities which they are working. So we'll have the so many commits, but all the commits, so no. So if you just run the git log, so it is going to have the so much information, so many commits. So what are the other options are available? If you verify the some commands at some points, git log with a -1 line. Yeah, so if I run it, the git log -1 line, that means the short description. I don't want to see this the complete I mean the 4 attributes, but we are limiting about it 1 line. So these are the latest commit and current head branch which content. This is about our latest, I mean the latest commit. This is the latest commit, so which we have on this master branch, and this commit which is mapped to that remote repository as well as. This is the mapping in our local repository. Master branch contains about this the latest commit, and the same commit is available in the remote repository also. This is for the blame testing purpose which I added. This is the latest commit which I done. Even the GitHub also contain the same one. So it is just comparing. Okay, this is the latest commit which we have this in our local repository, the master branch, and this is the same commit which is available in the remote repository as well as. And yeah, this is the second comment, third comment. Only version numbers like first 7 or 8 characters and the description of it. That is a 1-line logs. So what is the next option which you have? This is we need to know about that all the commits which are happen on the particular file. So then what we can do, this is git log and the file name. So file names, okay, let me give that the Ansible and Ansible.yaml file. There are the 2 commits which are happened so far. Yes, initially we were creating this file, and then recently we were testing about the blame purpose. Or here itself, -1 line we can use it. Yeah, so not here. So you can just give the before here. So if you don't need that long description and if you need the shorter description about it, so the the 1-line logs, so you can use it to this option, git log -1 line and on which file. So all the logs are the file based logs and author based logs. Yeah, this is the author based. Suppose git log -author and author name which you have is RNS. And here also it is listing the so many, but you can limit it hyphen one line. Yeah, so from this author, so there are the 4 commits which are happened so far. Suppose we have this one more author, Venkat 09 something. If you do this, yeah, so this user has done this only one commit. Yeah, so author based commits, file based commits, and short log. Yes, short log, if you just verify that. Yeah, there are the 2 users. So which we have the so far the commits which are happened in this repository. And from this user, there are the 4 commits which are happened. And from this user, this is the commit which is happened. That means, but it is not have the detailed information about what is the commit version number, when he has done all that information. There's a short information like the user wise total how many commits which are happened and the description of those commits. Yeah, this is one more option, that is a short log. Yeah, the first I mean, suppose here we have the total 5 commits we have, but I don't want to see all the stuff. The latest 2 commits I would like to see that. The latest 2 commits or latest 5 commits or latest 10 commits. So how I can see this, or how do you give that the latest number of lines, a number of commits? Git log -n and the number. Git log -n. Suppose I need to have the latest commit which is happened that -n1 with a -1 line. If you don't give that one line, it is going to give us all the 4 attributes. But if you need that only the single line formats, this is the option. And this is the latest commit which is happened in this repository, or the latest 2 commits or 3 commits. So you can give that the number of commits which are happened there recently. And one more option what we have this is I need to see thus some difference between the commits which are happened since to that until. What is the since to until? So what are the options which you have this is? Suppose, so if I run the git log -1 line, yeah, there are some commits which are happened. So what is my requirement is I need to verify that between the ranges. Suppose here we have the only the 5 okay no issues, but we have the some 100 commits which are happened, and some commit version which we have to say suppose so this is one version, one commit, and this is another commit, and this is another commit. So between this commit to this commit, what are the commits are happened? That means one checksum to another checksum. Between those checksums, what are the commits which are happened within the Git repository? So if you would like to see that the since and until is the option, so how do we use the since and until is git log and the checksum, the from kind of, and a dot and until which checksum that you want to verify that. Suppose here if I use it git log, if I give this checksum, this is since from the checksum, but it is going to exclude this one. I'll show this the output, then I'll explain. And this is the until which we are expecting. And as a one line. But here, I mean, we have the less commits. But in the organization, if you have this like 100 commits, but only the particular range of the commits you would like to see this or track it, then you can give that one checksum number to another checksum number. And since whatever you have given, that is the first one which we are trying to understand from here to here. But since whatever we have given the first one, it is excluded. It is not printed the 3F which is having this checksum number. And which is started the next onwards. Yes, this has been started. This is the one. And until that, whatever you have given, that is printed. And this is the until one which you have given here. So since and until, but since whatever you are giving that, the checksum number, this will be excluded. And next onwards, next to this one, what are the commits which are happened from that to that until it is going to give that. Yeah, between the checksum numbers, if you would like to know about it, that's a git log with the since and until options. Yeah, so there are some git options, git log options. Git log with one line, or the file based or author based, or the latest commits, or the short descriptions. And between the checksum numbers, if you'd like to see that, the since and until options. Yeah, but don't use the since and until. Since instead of that, what we need to place it is checksum. From which checksum, that means, but this will be excluded. Yeah. So from this one to until which checksum number, the checksum number which you can pass it. Yeah, so there are all the options which are available on this the Git log point of view. Yeah, finally, if we just try to recollect it, what we understood today, we understood that like the main commands, the remote repository synchronizing with the local repositories, and the GitHub account creation and the repository creation, and how do you clone that the GitHub repositories to the developer's machine. That is the GitHub, how to clone it, and Git server anyway we discussed yesterday, and the local repository you have created. But if you would like to add that the local repository to the remote repository, how do we add it? That is the git remote add, we were trying to understand it. That is one more command. And then which we were trying to understand some more points on this git point of view, like staging area and the local repository and the remote repository, understanding those three areas. So like git add command, git status command, git commit command, and the git push, git pull, and as well as git fetch. But fetch we didn't see the demonstration. Will come back, I'll show that. So whenever we have the parallel development, I will show this git fetch. Yeah, so there are all options, the commands we are trying to understand. And finally, some more commands from that git blame command, git rm command to remove the files, git reset command to revert it back staged area files to that working areas, and git branch command, so to give the list of all the branches which are created and which branch is the head branch. And yeah, so there are some other commands. And finally, the git log with multiple options, like the one line or short log or the author based or the file based or the latest commits which are happened, or the since and until. Yeah, they're all the commands which we are understanding that. Yeah, that's about for today, so which we have. And try to work with us all these commands. And still, if you are facing any problems or any issues, yeah, so we'll discuss that and we'll work with that. Because I mean, maybe like first, whenever you are pushing out the files, maybe you're going to face that SSH communications. If you have this the proper SSH communication, no issues on that. So all these commands with the local repository to the remote repository, you can freely, I mean, easily work with that. Yeah, so that's about the concepts for today. And do you have any queries or the questions for today? Yeah, so try to practice it, and still if you're facing any issues, let me know that. So just ping that in WhatsApp, like if you're facing, the team will support it, or otherwise we can talk it this once before starting about it. Because the first, if you're able to set up that, then the remaining commands you can easily work with that. But setting point of view, like which you need to have some support on that. The first, like the local repository with remote repository and SH communications. So let's make sure that. Yeah, that's points for today which we have. Yeah, thank you for the day, and we'll meet tomorrow at this shop at the same time.